like to do that, wouldn't you? Good morning, everybody. I think I'll pause just for a second. There are a few people coming in. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. I'm Walter Foley, the president of the congregation, and I'm pleased to see all of you here this morning. Whether you're a long-time member, a recent visitor, or perhaps today a first-time visitor, you're all welcome to this community of love, acceptance, and religious devotion. All of you, especially newcomers, are invited to join us following the service for refreshments and conversation in the hospitality area and out on the patio. This congregation is a community of free religious practice, which means that each one of us is responsible for developing our own beliefs and truths. And we do that by serious reflection and contemplation. We tend to find our truths and beliefs not in authority figures, nor in specific sacred books or creeds, but through our own knowledge, experience, and living. We do this in a spirit of acceptance, love, and commitment with one another, and respect those whose beliefs are true for them but differ from our own. This creates a pretty exciting and stimulating group. And if you like a little stimulation and excitement, you're welcome to join us. The insert in the order of service lists the upcoming week's calendar events, other information about what's happening in this congregation, and hopefully you all may see something there that interests you and will cause you to return. Finally, there are hearing devices and large print hymnals in the back of the sanctuary. If you'd raise your hand, if you need one of those, the ushers will bring it to you so you can enjoy the service. Now, as we begin the service, I would request that you please silence any technological devices, cell phones, etc., that you may have for the duration. Once again, welcome, and now let us begin with the prelude.
Enter into this sanctuary of hope, this gathering place of questing souls. Rejoice in the welcome that runs from hand to hand and eye to eye. Come into the warmth of this community. May its spirit soothe your soul. Enter. Rejoice. Come in. Let today be a joyful day. And let us rise in body or spirit and join our voices in singing our opening hymn, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. I forgot to remind everybody of that little repeat that was going to happen. It even caught me by surprise. The flaming chalice is a symbol of our free faith. It was designed first to identify members of the Unitarian Service Committee during World War II. The Service Committee was a new entity at the time, founded to assist Eastern Europeans, among them Jews and Unitarians, who needed to escape Nazi persecution. To Hans Deutsch, the artist who first brought together the chalice and the flame as a Unitarian symbol, the image had connotations of sacrifice and love. Today, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee works on multiple fronts, partnering with local grassroots organizations in the continuing fight for social justice in the United States and around the world. And the flaming chalice stands at the front of most Unitarian Universalist congregations, a sign of our quest for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. As Kira lights the chalices, one that stays with us here in the sanctuary and one that goes with our students into their classrooms, please join in reciting the chalice lighting response that you'll find in your order of service. In the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, we gather this day. May the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the holiness we seek. And if there are any children who aren't down front that would like to come down for this morning's message, I urge you to do that. Good morning, everybody. So today we have a story from Rodrigo Figueira, if I pronounced that right. So it's a story about a pond in the middle of the woods. And in that pond, there was a whole group of frogs, and they lived very happily in the pond. One morning, they woke up, and to their surprise, sitting on a rock at the edge of the pond was a pig. And not just any pig, a pink pig. And the frogs sort of whispered to each other, "What's a pig? What's a pig doing here? What do you think it wants? What are we going to do?" And so the chief frog stood up and cleared its throat and asked, "Can we help you?" And to their surprise, the pig answered,
Ribbit.
What did that pig say?
Ribbit.
I thought that's what the pig said. Well, the frogs were beside themselves. They didn't know what to do. Why is this pig here? And why is it saying ribbit? And does it think it's a frog? Or is it making fun of us? Well, soon word of this incredible pink pig perched on a stone at the perimeter of the pond spread to the entire area around the pond. And all the animals came to see this pink pig.
Ribbit.
The raccoon said, "Wow, that's a pink frog." The frog said, "It's not a frog, it's a pig." And the egret said, "Why does a pig want to be a frog?" And the frog said, "What's wrong with being a frog?" And all the little pig said was,
Ribbit.
well, that got some of the animals giggling and then laughing, and then the frogs got angry and they started yelling at each other, and they were going back and forth, and all of the while the little piglet was saying,
Ribbit. Ribbit.
well, finally, the chief frog said, "Stop! We're going to go consult with wise old Beetle." Wise old Beetle? He never likes to be disturbed. What are we going to do with wise old Beetle? He'll have an answer. And this is serious. And everybody agreed it was serious. So off everybody shuffled down to find wise old Beetle, and they found wise old Beetle under a palm frond, hiding in the shade. And at first, wise old Beetle had no idea what these animals were trying to tell it because they were all talking at once. But finally, wise old Beetle agreed that he would go to the pond and take a look at this thing, this pink pig. And so all the animals shuffled back to the edge of the pond, and no pig. Where did the pig go? What did the pig want? Said the raccoon. And again, the animals started, arguing a little bit. And wise old Beetle said, "Stop. Maybe the pink pig just wanted to be friends. Maybe it just wanted to belong." "Oh," said the animals and the frogs, "we didn't think of that." And so they looked around for the pink pig. And sure enough, there it was, sitting in a high branch of a tree with some cluster of birds all around it, saying,
Tweet. Tweet. Tweet.
and all the animals looked up and nodded their heads and climbed up into the branches of the tree beside the pink pig.
Tweet.
Tweet. Everybody went, tweet,
Tweet. Tweet.
tweet. And that's the end of the story. But of course, the lesson is that everybody wants to belong somewhere. Everybody wants to make friends somewhere. And that's what we do here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. We make room for friends, and sometimes we even climb trees and say, tweet,
Tweet. Tweet.
just to make somebody feel welcome. So thanks, everybody, for listening. And it's time to head off your classes, and we'll sing the children out. So now if we can sort of shift our focus and maybe our energy level a little bit and deepen into a time of sharing and love and compassion. This is our chance each week to share with one another those joys and sorrows that come with us into the sanctuary in our hearts and minds every week. A time to share the personal things, not so much the business things of life. So if you have a joy or a sorrow that you'd like to share, I urge you to raise your hand. I'll bring you the microphone. And if you'd state your name and share with us what's in your heart, joys and sorrows. Those that have been kept in your hearts and your minds are also in everyone else's hearts and minds as we join in community here and know that each other carries always griefs and sorrows, joys and wonders with us every single day. If you remain seated, please, and open your hymnals to number 123. If you don't know it, Spirit of Life. So we'll remain seated and enter into a spirit in a time of meditation by singing. Spirit of Life, help us recognize that still small voice within and a sense of longing for something more. Spirit of Love, help us hear the call to change and have the courage to take that first step. Spirit of Truth, help us see that our way is blessed, whether the road be rough or smooth. And may the spirit of those who have gone before and those who will follow travel with us. And may our journey be filled with wonder of discovery from beginning to end. Let's take a minute of silence together. Responsive reading this morning is found on the inside back cover of your order of service. I'll read the words in Roman, and you can read the words in italic. This was written by Hope Johnson, Reverend Hope Johnson. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing and rejoicing. Getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, questioning, seeking, searching. Trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes. Paying attention, asking questions, listening, living our answers. Learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves. Apologizing for forgiving with humility. Being forgiven through grace. Creating the beloved community together we are one. Thank you. This time each service we show our generosity and our love and commitment to this congregation, above and beyond our annual pledge to the church. If you're visiting with us for the first time, I hope you'll let the plate pass you by. Your presence here this morning is a gift in and of itself. Everyone else can then dig deeply in the wallets. And the morning's offering will be gratefully received. Before I share the reading this morning, I want to thank Walt for doing such an excellent job of foreshadowing my sermon today. It was as if you read it already, so that was good. Thank you. The reading this morning is from the Reverend Mary Safford, who was minister in Humboldt, Iowa, in 1889. I know people need food and clothing, but I also know they need the saving power of high thoughts and unselfish love, of that soul culture which gives to life new meaning and new glory. Surely it should be our joy to give what thus has power to bless. And the world is ready now to receive the truth which once it feared or scorned. If this truth is right in presenting, if it shines on the face and glows in the life as well as speaks on the tongue. For the leaven of liberal thought has been and still is working in thoughtful minds everywhere. Mary Augusta Safford was a natural preacher. As a young child, she would often entertain her family by standing up on a tree stump on their farm in Hamilton, Illinois, and give out the good news. Harmless, perhaps, for a girl growing up in the 1850s when it seemed almost impossible for it to lead to anything. But by the time she was 28, Mary Safford was a fully ordained minister in the Unitarian faith, and, along with her friend Eleanor Gordon, a key figure in an emerging constellation of clergywomen known today as the Iowa Sisterhood, who dominated Unitarian development on the frontier for the rest of the century. It was this group of over 20 clergywomen and their supporters, like Jenkin Lloyd Jones, Secretary of the Western Office of the American Unitarian Association, who pushed the boundaries not only of this denomination in the late 19th century, but also its concept of ministry. Theirs was an inquiring spirit that stood apart from the stuffy elitism of the East and the Unitarian pulpits back in the Boston area. Unwilling to let their flocks settle into a church life of all reading poetry or studying modern science, these ministers urged an integration of current affairs and community service. They took seriously the tending of their church families, of teaching and nurturing the children, and supporting their parents, not only through words of care and concern, but by rolling up their sleeves and helping out when needed. In fact, this faith of ours, though birthed in the cities and towns of New England under the influence of men like William Ellery Channing, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Theodore Parker, has continued to find its nourishment and its source of renewal in the life-giving ideas and actions of ministers and lay people living on the denomination's margins. Mary Safford and Eleanor Gordon looked especially to Theodore Parker, believing as he did that our common endeavor was continually a search for those deeper truths on which we could plant our flag, all the while reveling in that freedom that allowed us to continue the search and the responsibility to act on what we learn about ourselves and about this world, finding ways to support one another on the journey. The Western Unitarian Conference of the late 1800s was instrumental in freeing up the language Unitarians used to affirm their faith. And later, in the 1930s, humanist leaders from our central and western districts pushed again against the language that limited our vision of who we are as a religious people or who we could be. The women's movement of the 1970s had a major impact on our faith, and again widened the use of language to be much more inclusive. And in the last few decades, members and friends whose sexual identity didn't fit what was considered mainstream have found a home and pushed our boundaries even farther as we continue to widen the circle of love and the incorporation of the spirit of truth. It's not always been an easy path. At the turn of the century, the able and dynamic clergywomen of the frontier came up against a new wave of resistance from the Eastern establishment and fought what was to be then a losing battle against the misogyny of a few short-sighted leaders of our faith and the silence of the larger church. The number of women ministers, never very high, declined dramatically after the turn of the century. But those who remained fought hard for what they had won and remained true to the overall movement and their pursuit of excellence in ministry despite the obstacles that had been thrown up before them. In 1900, the Reverend Eleanor Gordon could write a beautiful statement on the sources of our faith that resonates quite easily with what we hold today. She wrote, "All the goodness of the past, the devotion of the humble as well as the exalted, the earnestness of the ignorant as well as that of the learned, all that made for noble living, for brave doing, is our heritage. All that is fair of form or face, the music of childhood and of birds and of artists, the color of the sunset sky and of painted canvas, the revelation of poem and tale. From one and all we shall draw our inspiration, and until our hearts give glad recognition that all truth when fully realized is beautiful, that all beauty when fully realized is good, and all goodness, when fully recognized, is both truthful and beautiful." Here in Naples, we can identify with life on the margins of our Unitarian Universalist faith. One of the most southernmost congregation in a somewhat northern-centric denomination, living within a local culture that doesn't understand us if, in fact, they know or care about us at all. We often feel we need to make our own way, figure out what will work for us, and just do it. We come together from all over the country and from all over the world. Sometimes we come because there aren't too many other places to find a kindred spirit who might be willing to engage in a free and easy conversation about faith. And we tend to come to Unitarian Universalism on our own, as a choice. Even the ones like me who grew up UU have had moments when we recognize we have found something new and of value. My own realization came within the course of a single sermon given by the new minister at my church during what was his first years with us. I was 16, and as was my usual wont during sermons, I was staring out the church window. In fact, if you look at the ordination order service down the hall on the left, you will see that window pictured on the cover. I was watching out the window, looking at the trees, and wishing I were outside instead of trapped in the sanctuary. My ears, however, picked up on the story the minister was telling about a particular experience he once had when he was in the Air Force stationed in northern Africa. He had made his way out into the desert late at night and standing high on a dune, looking up at the incredible array of stars. He had felt a deep and visceral feeling of connection with the universe. My head was literally turned from looking out the window to looking intently at this minister. He had just shared an experience that was similar to the kind of experiences I knew in my time in nature and that I somehow thought were unique. More important, he went on to tell how these experiences of connection were his motivation for wanting to make a difference in the world. And at 16, this was a surprisingly new and exciting idea. Is this what my church, my faith is all about? I could get on board with this. Sometimes I hear about others whose experience of discovering this faith include that kind of an aha moment. But I've also heard many people who come to us from other faiths and other experiences that say that the realization came to them when they walked into a UU congregation on a Sunday morning for the first time and just had a remarkable feeling of finding home. We come to know that our individual faith, no matter how we perceive it or how we define it, is a dynamic thing. If we live our beliefs, engaging in the world around us, we find that we are changed over and over again by that world and by the people in it. what we encounter day by day impacts our faith as much as all those moments of inner reflection. We understand that the answers to life's questions, if they are to be found at all, don't reside solely inside our head or in any one text or in the prescribed beliefs of any one sect, even Unitarian Universalism. We may sometimes want it to be that easy, but life is far too complicated to be summed up in a neat package. Today we might feel we're on top of everything, but inevitably tomorrow comes and presents us with something that throws us for a complete loop. We might be cruising along, thinking we've got it all figured out with a clear path in front of us, but instead we find that there's a rocky patch and a turn and a whole new direction to navigate. And could we, would we, have it any other way? How could we give up on our active engagement with this thing called life, when amidst the struggle there is also the wonder and the joy of discovery, discovering new depths and new directions? And two, there is the wonder and joy in discovering how other folks deal with the tumults of life in ways that we would not have even considered. Unitarian Universalists have a wide range of spiritual practices that allow us to process the challenges of this world. Some of us do it in quiet meditation. Some of us love a discussion. Some of us get out into nature. Some of us stay in and pray to a God of our own understanding. Some of us observe daily rituals. Some of us read deeply. Some of us engage our creative energy. Some of us just get in the car and drive. And none of these things is mutually exclusive. The diversity of our practices underscores for all of us that there is not a single way to spiritual health and well-being. And it reminds us that in the wider world there is no single religious truth. Revelation is ongoing and is open to all. While we might not engage the spiritual side of life in exactly the same way, we do find unity in the quest itself and in the principles with which our congregations have bound themselves together. These principles provide a common direction and a common vocabulary for us to use as we go about our work in the world. The 7 principles that you can see and read on the back of your order of service are not a creed, but a challenge. You don't need to subscribe to these beliefs to join a UU congregation, but with deep consideration, you will become aware that in recognizing the wonder inherent in your own existence, in the existence of other people, and in this incredible universe of which we are a part, you have to live in right relationship with yourself and with those people and with the planet. Those who have understood both the wonder and the responsibility continue to find and choose this transforming faith over and over again, even as they go through the ups and downs of life and those unexpected changes of direction. And they do so because they know that this faith can change with them, informing their actions even as they struggle to adapt to new personal realities. Faith is a dynamic thing, but with guiding principles and loving communities to give us roots, while allowing us to freely search for our own truths in light of all that we encounter, there is joy in the quest. One of the great theologians of our own day, the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker, would also be quick to remind us that our free and responsible search for truth and meaning is not completely unbounded. For example, we can believe in God, or we can believe there is no God, but we can't really hold the belief that God is all-powerful and controls everything that happens to the extent that there is no free will. Our faith lifts up that each and every one of us has some measure of freedom, and that this freedom is an inherent characteristic of our existence. As Unitarian Universalists, we can leave the idea of salvation alone, or we can choose to define salvation in our own terms. But we cannot hold the belief that there will be an ultimate separation of the saved from the damned. There is no final solution to be had by the privileged protection of some and the destruction of others. We hold that salvation in whatever form is universally attainable. Unitarian Universalists can see the world as deeply and tragically flawed, or we can see it as rich and full of possibility, or we can see it as both. What we can't do is look solely towards some other life or some other world beyond this world. As Unitarian Universalists, we focus our lives on this world and in this present moment. This is the only world we can know and experience. We believe the ultimate is here and now, and our work together is to build beloved community here on this planet. We are bound together in this work and in our reverence and in our devotion to the flourishing of life. In affirming our seventh principle, we say yes to both an intellectual and an emotional understanding that we are all connected in an interdependent web of life that motivates us to live in right relationship with the earth and its inhabitants. We are also bound together in our openness to spiritual growth and change. We come here not so much to find answers as to continue that engagement with life and to check in with others who can provide an ear to listen or a shoulder to cry on, even as they too struggle to find their way. We come to be challenged and comforted, to comfort and challenge. We come to hold up the courageous voices of people like Mary Safford and Eleanor Gordon, because from the margins their lives spoke out against those who would maintain the status quo. In other words, we come here to engage our entire being, our head and our heart and our hands, in a continuing quest for truth, beauty, and love. Knowing we can as easily find something on which to reflect in a good sermon as we can in the story of struggles shared by one of our fellow congregants. We come here to be renewed in our connections so that we can go back out into a troubling world and put our best selves forward. May it be so. Amen. I invite you to turn to hymn number 298 in the gray hymnals, Wake Now My Senses. And I invite, before we all stand up, I invite those of us who are with us for the first or second time, if you're willing, to rise and be seen so that we can get to know you better. Welcome, welcome. It's good to have you with us. Now will everybody else join them? And let's join our voices in singing, Wake Now My Senses. Wake now my Our closing words are by the Reverend Tim Kutzmark from a quote from John Burens, a former UUA president. Blessed are we that know that the work of a church is the transformation of self and society. Blessed are we who take up the great task of loving one another and our world. Blessed are we who have a vision of a beloved community that transcends the present moment. Blessed are we who do not shrink from controversy, sacrifice, or change. Blessed are we who have a shared responsibility to something greater than our own wants and needs. Blessed are we indeed, if this is who we can become. Please be seated for the postlude. So whether you're a pink pig perpetually poised on the perimeter of the pond, or whether you're a frog that likes to dive right in, or whether you identify as something completely different, you are welcome here and urged to join us all for fellowship next door. Go in peace.